Ladies and gentlemen, what is up? Welcome back to the Wrestling is Bullshit podcast. We are just hours removed from the first ever AEW Redemption pay-per-view. We definitely silenced some critics with that one. I say we as if I play for the team. That's very toxic of me. Like, just don't be like me, I guess. And then we also have the official announcement of WWE Radio, and we're going to have a nice conversation about that, as well as a pretty interesting and eventful watch list coming up this week. Let's get into it, man. Before we get to AEW Redemption, we actually had one title retain, one title change. We had a notable retain on AEW Dynamite where Divine Dominion retained the AEW Women's World Tag Team Championship in a no disqualification match against the Sisters of Sin. That definitely puts them up there, puts them up. That levels up Divine Dominion, I would say, to a top tier tag team champion in the world of wrestling, if not the top tier tag team champions of wrestling right now. And then we had the AAA mixed tag team championship change hands as Laredo Kid and La Hydra were able to defeat Sol Ruka and Mr. Iguana, who have had a pretty noteworthy title reign there in AAA. Now it's time to get into AEW Redemption. All right. So we had two big tag title matches of note, and then AEW Redemption was just eventful to say the least. Ultimately, this was a pay-per-view that a lot of people said they weren't very excited for. Some of the most loyal and positive AEW fans were saying that they were not excited about Kenny Omega versus Kevin Knight, the main event, the AEW World Champion versus the TNT Champion. They would have rather preferred MJF versus Kenny Omega. And who's to say they're wrong? I mean, that has AEW pay-per-view main event written all over it, MJF versus Kenny Omega. But they do something different. We'll get to the Kenny Omega main event stuff in just a second. I just want to cover other notable things that happened on this show. First and foremost, AEW has pushed their pay-per-view start times an hour ahead. So this show got started about 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern, which is an hour ahead of what it normally is, which is 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. And this means that the show came to an end at 9 o'clock, 9:30 maybe Pacific, 12:30 Eastern, which I think is a lot more reasonable. And I really do appreciate that push of the start time for the main card of pay-per-views, because going into a Sunday night super late, especially as a teacher, it can be really taxing and exhausting and tiring to be fully present for these AEW pay-per-views late on a Sunday night. I look forward to when they're on Saturdays. In the second half of the year, they go ahead and they make the switch to Saturdays. That's a different story. I'm happy to stay up late on a Saturday for these pay-per-views, but it's a lot to ask on a Sunday. Nonetheless, man, what happened that was notable on AEW Redemption? Well, the Dogs defeated the Bang Bang Gang in a double chain match in what was a violent, entertaining match. The Dogs were able to get the victory with some help from the Death Riders. I wonder if the Death Riders will be recruiting and acquiring the Dogs into their faction, growing the Death Rider faction. I would like to see that. I think it's cool that they do the Dogs, like it's very much a call to the Bullet Club War Dogs that had David Finlay, Clark Connors, and Gabe Kidd. But now they're just kind of known as the Dogs in AEW. Feels like they're in a very transitional period. And I think these guys joining the Death Riders along with Gabe Kidd would be good for the Death Riders and good for the Dogs. We'll see what happens there. We also had Willow Nightingale defeat Tekla in the co-main of the pay-per-view to become the new AEW Women's World Champion. She is now on a collision course with Mercedes Moné at AEW's biggest show of the year, All In London, Wembley Stadium. That'll be a huge match, Willow versus Mercedes. I will say Mercedes quickly took the TBS championship off of Willow a couple of short years ago, and now they're facing each other again for the big one, for the world title. And in this case, as much as I love Mercedes Moné, I would like to see Willow Nightingale even the score to 1-1. Or in this case, excuse me, I understand they wrestled months ago for the TBS title. It would be 2-1 Willow. It's already 1-1, so please scratch that. Um, but I just think this is, yes, a good time for Mercedes to win the title. I just don't want to see her snub Willow Nightingale with a short title reign for the second time in 3 years. I think it's time for Willow Nightingale to get a big win over Mercedes Moné at All In, and I would love to see that. Yeah, I'm a much bigger fan of Mercedes Moné than I am Willow Nightingale, but I think Willow Nightingale deserves to defeat Mercedes Moné at All In and retain the AEW Women's World Title. We'll see what happens, though. We'll definitely see what happens. We also got to see Andrade defeat Mark Davis for the AEW National Championship. I personally believe that this is going to set up Andrade versus MJF for that AEW National Championship. And I think MJF, if they're not going to have him hold the world title anytime soon again, then they should definitely put the AEW National Championship on him and have him hold that title for a long time. But this will be a good title match for AEW at All In, Andrade versus MJF. And then we also saw Maya World defeat Hikaru Shida for the TBS Championship. Maya World is one of the biggest rising stars in AEW, so it's good to see her get this TBS Championship crowning moment. I expect her to have a lot of TV defenses with the TBS Championship on Dynamite. That'll be very entertaining, and that'll add a lot to the shows. I feel like every one of Maya World's matches is a must watch at this point in time right now. So very excited for that. And then we had a ladder match to determine the number one contender to the AEW International Championship. And this ladder match was won by Mike Bailey. Mike Bailey will go on to face Kyle Fletcher at AEW Grand Slam Mexico, not this week, but next week. So we will check in on that on the next episode. Very fun ladder match here to start off the show. And then we had the Painmaker, Chris Jericho, defeat Tommaso Ciampa in a no-holds-barred match, one of the most violent endings I've ever seen to a wrestling match. Somehow AEW finds a way to top themselves. This was violent. This was a lot. I'm not going to say I loved or enjoyed watching this, but it's what you get with AEW, right? If you like deathmatch wrestling and ultra-violent wrestling, then expect AEW to deliver it at a high scale, especially on the pay-per-views. So yeah, that was AEW Redemption, right? That was a very eventful and fun show of wrestling, pay-per-view of wrestling. And let's talk about this ending for a second, okay? Because we had Kenny Omega defending the AEW World Championship against current TNT champion Kevin Knight. This was a main event that a lot of people said they weren't very excited for. I kind of was keeping quiet until I saw the main event itself. And I'm really glad that I did that, because after seeing this main event, I loved it. Kenny Omega versus Kevin Knight. This is Kevin Knight's going to go on to be a big star one day. Kenny Omega has been a big star in his career. Feels like we're coming to the end of Kenny Omega's full-time career. It really does. And we got this big pay-per-view main event that is going to mean something later more than it does right now. I think one day we'll look back on this Kenny Omega versus Kevin Knight match. Remember and respect how freaking good of a match it was. This was absolutely pay-per-view main event worthy. This is a good opportunity for a guy like Kevin Knight, who is entering, if not in his prime, to carry a bit of an older and injured with the diverticulitis Kenny Omega to an amazing match. And it was an amazing match. This was one of my favorite AEW pay-per-views of the year, to be honest with you. And we have had some great matches to close out AEW pay-per-views in 2026, right? We had Hangman versus MJF in a Texas death match. We had Omega versus MJF earlier this year. Double or Nothing had the Anarchy in the Arena, if I'm not mistaken. We've had, Double or Nothing closed out with Darby Allin versus MJF, which was incredible, right? We've had some great main events, but Kenny Omega versus Kevin Knight really left a good impression on me, and I am happy that they took the risk and put a match like this, which seems like it would be a TV main event, in a pay-per-view main event. I think it was a good opportunity for Kevin Knight to shine, and him and Kenny Omega just put on a banger. And what happened after was very interesting, right? We had the Death Riders attack Kenny Omega after his victory. Will Ospreay was instructed by Jon Moxley to suffocate Kenny Omega with the paper bag, with the whatever, I think plastic bag. And Will Ospreay reluctantly but firmly said no and turned on the Death Riders, right? Kind of kicking the Death Riders out of the ring, protecting his opponent at All In, which is the AEW World Champion Kenny Omega. And the show seems like it's going to end with Ospreay and Kenny Omega kind of celebrating together with the big All In main event on the screen, right? Will Ospreay versus Kenny Omega, AEW World Championship, babyface versus babyface. Here we are thinking, okay, looks like Will Ospreay is going to have several matches with different members of the Death Riders, including Jon Moxley, by the end of the year, primarily probably in build to All In, his biggest match of his career. And then Kenny Omega turns on Will Ospreay. It's like, I clearly thought that this ending to the pay-per-view was overbooked. Okay, I was cool with the whole Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay segment after the main event. And then I just don't think that it was time to turn Kenny Omega quote unquote heel. First of all and foremost, Kenny Omega isn't full blown heel right now. I think they're just putting him in the position of a heel for one match, which is his match against Will Ospreay. Because obviously Will Ospreay is the hometown babyface going into All In, challenging for the world championship. So it makes sense that you want to kind of turn Kenny Omega not heel, but into a heel role just for this match at least. I just don't think you do it at the end of the pay-per-view. I think that was overbooked and too eventful. Like, you got to let things breathe. Okay, we're expecting Will Ospreay to take on each and every member of the Death Riders leading up to All In. He'll probably win the big one at All In, face Jon Moxley for the defending the title at All Out, right? That is in stone, but I feel like this Kenny Omega thing is it's just a little too much. It's just a little too much. You don't have to overbook the ending. I feel like you could have let this main event, Kenny Omega versus Kevin Knight, stand on its own. You want to have the Will Ospreay and Jon Moxley storytelling beat after, that's fine, but don't go too far. Too many segments where AEW just goes too far and has like seemingly two different heel turns in one segment. Like that in my mind, that is a big no-no, especially when you got weeks and weeks of television to do something like this. This would have stood much better on its own to close out a Dynamite, or maybe even a Collision if they wanted to, probably a Dynamite. I enjoyed AEW Redemption. I just think the ending was an overbooked mess, and I think AEW has to be careful because that is a good way to leave a bad impression on somebody watching your product. I'm a big AEW fan through and through. You know this, I know this. But I'll call them out when I feel the need to. And this is a moment where I feel like I need to call them out and tell them that they overbooked the ending to their most recent pay-per-view, AEW Redemption, because they did. All right, let's move on, guys. It was a solid show. I look forward to seeing more of AEW in 2026, as they do at the end of the day. While they did make a blunder, they do continue one of the most incredible runs that I've ever seen from a pro wrestling promotion. Let's get into WWE Radio, okay? Pro Wrestling Network 24/7 was a Sirius XM channel that is now known as WWE Radio. This was a channel that hosted major podcasts like Busted Open Radio. And now Busted Open Radio will continue to be on WWE Radio and is ultimately expected to only cover WWE affiliated and owned wrestling promotions, as you can imagine. Good for WWE. This kind of sounds cool with the whole, they are going to have audio and commentary from Monday Night Raw live, SmackDown live, probably NXT live, and premium live events. You're going to be able to tune in and listen to a WWE wrestling event like you would an NFL football game. It's gonna that's a good idea, right? That's a really good idea. This is what I'm worried about, and I'm sure WWE could care less about this. With WWE Radio becoming a thing officially, we have word from Tony Khan after the AEW Redemption media scrum stating that AEW is looking to create a podcast network of its own. And this is only going to fuel the fire that I've been seeing recently. I feel like a lot of people that do what I do here, dare I say, do what I do at an even bigger and better scale, right? Just being honest. They are starting to either go in the direction of staying closer to WWE content or staying closer to AEW content. And of course, with WWE content comes AAA, comes TNA, comes NXT, and then you go to the other side and you say with AEW comes Ring of Honor, New Japan, CMLL. There seems to be a split when it comes to podcasting now. There was absolutely a split when it came to the world of pro wrestling, like the actual wrestling shows. But now there's a split with guys like me who podcast. And listen to me, guys. I think the value of my show, as well as several other shows out there, is that they cover both WWE and AEW. You get what you need and you hear what you want to hear, essentially. Let me explain that. If you watch me or you watch Wrestle Talk or something like that, you are going to hear what these guys or myself think about a WWE pay-per-view or premium live event that you just watched. And then they are going to educate and inform you on what happened within AEW's big shows in that parameter of time, right? And vice versa, if you're more of an AEW guy, you're going to hear what I or others think about the AEW show, and we are going to inform you on what you missed in the world of WWE. Or you watch both and you get my or someone else's analysis for both. And I think that's very special, right? I think it's very special to acknowledge both. If you're not acknowledging both, then are you really a pro wrestling podcaster? Is my question. There's been a lot of people that have come out. I'm not going to name names. There's been a lot of people that have come out and stayed exclusive to WWE. And in doing so, a lot of people have also stayed exclusive to AEW in that world. But I fear that not many people are going to be doing both anymore because they're either going to be trying to land a gig on WWE radio or try to get within the AEW podcast network that Tony Khan himself has confirmed will be in the works. And that just makes me sad, dude. Not only does it make me sad that I'll probably never end up on either of these because I refuse to pick one over the other. I'm going to cover both. I will always cover both. I'll always tell you the truth about how I feel about a promotion, but I'll always cover both. And I don't think there's going to be many people like that anymore. I think a lot of people are going to pick a side and try to make some money. And good for them. More power to you. But I just wish that this internet wrestling community wasn't becoming so segmented. There is clearly a WWE crowd out there, and there is clearly an AEW crowd out there. So where does that leave a guy like me that covers both and is a completely honest, no strings attached wrestling fan? Where does that leave me? In the same echo chamber that I've been in for years. That's okay. I don't do this for the money. Look at my production quality. I don't care. I look to get my thoughts out and make content for my fans, not the world, not everyone, just my fans. But I think this community is getting away from that type of philosophy, which is sad because I have been inspired by a lot of people that had that same calling, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, whatever. People that are completely honest about both WWE and AEW. And it seems like that's a dying art. And it just makes me sad because we are already too damn tribalistic as a community. And it seems like we're only going to get more and more tribalistic. Silly, really. But I guess, barring that, I do think that WWE radio on Sirius XM is going to be really cool. I think it's going to be a good opportunity to get new fans, people that do Uber Eats or truck driving will discover WWE radio, listen to hours of podcasts, get to know these athletes a little more personally, and just be more informed within the world of WWE. And then AEW will do the same thing. I'm sure that'll also be interesting. It just saddens me that it seems like a lot of people aren't going to be doing both anymore. Let me tell you right here, ladies and gentlemen, I will continue to do both. I'm not doing this to get money. I'm doing this because I love this sport. I'm doing this because I think this community needs me and my perspective. I know that's a little pompous to say, but I truly intuitively believe it's true, and that's what keeps me going. Not the numbers, not the recognition. I could care less at this point. All right. It's just sad. I think the directions that we're going as a community can be really sad. Let's get into the watch list, ladies and gentlemen. We have a very eventful watch list. On Monday Night Raw, we will see Sol Ruka defend the Women's Intercontinental Championship against Raquel Rodriguez. And then on NXT, we will see Miles Bourne defend the North American Championship against Cam Hendricks. Wednesday, AEW Dynamite will see the conglomeration defend the AEW World Trios titles against The Demand. Should be a fun one. Another fun one on SmackDown here, as Damian Priest and R-Truth will defend the WWE Tag Team Championship against the War Raiders. And then Saturday and Sunday, we have SummerSlam, the one of the two biggest shows that WWE puts on every year, right? They put on WrestleMania at the beginning of the year, and then they put on SummerSlam in the middle of the year. Lately, this is how it's been going. WrestleMania has become for the casual fan. It's true. WrestleMania is now for the casual fan, and I feel like SummerSlam is for us. SummerSlam is for the wrestling fans. SummerSlam is for the people that keep in tune year-round, right? This is where we get the matches that the diehards want to see, and then WrestleMania is really WWE trying to have their statement show and gather the attention of casual fans, gather the attention of ESPN viewers, you name it. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, SummerSlam is our show, in my opinion. It's also August, late summer is becoming the official season of wrestling, in my opinion. Because, yes, you have WrestleMania put on by WWE, and then their other big show this year is going to be SummerSlam. And then a couple weeks later, we're going to get AEW's singular best show of the year, and that will be All In. So August truly does become wrestling season at a big scale. I am going to be putting another video out in the next couple of days. I will have my co-host of the Lights Out podcast, Ant, with me to do a SummerSlam preview and prediction. We will go over every single match on the card on both Saturday and Sunday, and we will just talk WWE, talk how we feel about SummerSlam and how excited we are or are not. Okay? I will say I'm fairly excited. I think the build has been meh. I think the build has been okay to SummerSlam, but I think the matches that we have on paper here are absolutely going to deliver for sure. So I'm going to do a full preview and prediction with my co-host of the Lights Out podcast. This will be the last time in the 2026 calendar year that we come together to talk exclusively about WWE. And we will do a preview and prediction show for AEW All In as well. And that will be the last Wrestling is Bullshit special of the year. We only have 3 specials of the year. 3 specials a year, excuse me. We have the WrestleMania special, we have the SummerSlam special, we have the All-In special. And if you like hearing from me and Ant, if you enjoy our previews and predictions, then I implore you to listen to the Lights Out podcast, which is very educational, and it's basically what I do here, but for boxing, and I do it with a co-host. And I love the Lights Out podcast. We've started it this year. I enjoy doing it. I think whether you're a casual boxing fan or a diehard boxing fan, I think the Lights Out podcast will be very helpful, analytical, and informative for you. Another episode of the Lights Out podcast should also be coming within the next couple of days. So yeah, I just wanted to plug 2 big videos that I have coming this week. That's this week's episode of the Lights Out podcast with Ant, and then Ant and I will be doing our SummerSlam preview and predictions as well. Nonetheless, man, getting back to the watch list, we have 7 matches of significance to add to this watch list for WWE SummerSlam. SummerSlam on Saturday, we'll see CM Punk defend the undisputed WWE Championship against Cody Rhodes. We will also see Obafemi versus Brock Lesnar in a Hell in a Cell match, and we will see Liv Morgan versus Io Sky for the Women's World Championship. Those are the 3 matches of significance on SummerSlam Saturday. SummerSlam Sunday, we'll see Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins for the World Heavyweight Championship, a match I'm very excited for, contrary to most. And then we will also see a ladder match for the interim WWE Women's Championship. So far, who we have officially announced for this ladder match is Charlotte Flair, Jade Cargill, Tiffany Stratton, and Chelsea Green. We should see 1 to 2 more spots fill up for this ladder match, and I'm excited to see this ladder match. This is definitely a match that I'm looking forward to the most on both nights. And then we have Trick Williams defending the United States Championship against Baron Corbin, and Penta defending the Intercontinental Championship against Chad Gable. All right, that is the watch list. Let's go over the top 20 champions of wrestling and get you out of here. Let's start with the honorable mentions. We have Konosuke Takeshita, the New Japan Pro Wrestling World Television Champion. We have the WWE Speed Champion, Lexis King. We have the Women's United States Champion, Tiffany Stratton. We have the X Division Champion of TNA, Cedric Alexander. We have the Pure Champion of Ring of Honor, Leo Rush. We have the World Tag Team Champions of Ring of Honor, El Sky Team. We have the Women's World Champion, Liv Morgan. We have the World Heavyweight Champion, Roman Reigns. I'm so sorry. Lee Moriarty is the Pure Champion of Ring of Honor. He is on this list. And Leo Rush is the Ring of Honor World Television Champion, who is also on this list. Continuing here, we have the Ring of Honor World Champion, Bandito. We have the Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team Champions, Dalton Castle and the Outrunners. We have the Ring of Honor Women's World Television Champion, Red Velvet. Ring of Honor Women's Pure Champion, Deonna Purrazzo. And Ring of Honor Women's World Champion, Athena. That is our honorable mentions list. And now we get into the top 20. 20 to 11 here. We have number 20, Cajun Cope. Number 19, the WWE Tag Team Champions, Wepa Up, Damian Priest and R-Truth. Number 18, we have the AAA World Cruiserweight Champion, Rey Fenix. At number 17, we have the Women's Intercontinental Champion, Sol Ruka. Number 16, we have the Vanity Project, the NXT Tag Team Champions. Number 15, we have Lainey Luck, the WWE ID Women's Champion. Number 14, we have Jon Moxley, the AEW Continental Champion. Number 13, we have the AEW Women's World Tag Team Champions, Divine Dominion. Number 12, we have the Women's North American Champion of NXT, Zarya. And number 11, we have the NXT Women's Champion, Kendall Gray. Getting into the top 10 here, we have the Conglomeration, the AEW World Trios Champions at number 10. Number 9, we have the TNT Champion, Kevin Knight. Number 8, we have the TNA International Champion, Mustafa Ali. At number 7, we have Miles Bourne, the North American Champion of NXT. At number 6, we have Penta, the Intercontinental Champion. At number 5, we have Tony D'Angelo, the NXT Champion. Number 4, we have Kyle Fletcher, the AEW International Champion. Getting to the podium here, we have number 3, Trick Williams, the United States Champion. Number 2, the AEW World Champion, Kenny Omega. And number 1, we have the undisputed WWE Champion, CM Punk. What an interesting time to be a fan. We are officially kicking off what I consider to be the annual season of wrestling, where we get SummerSlam, and a couple of weeks later, we get All In. Should be a good time. That's all I got for you today, ladies and gentlemen. This has been the Wrestling is Bullshit podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. We had a lot to talk about. We went over a lot, and we are just firing on all cylinders at this point in the year. I look forward to talking about SummerSlam with my co-host Ant in the coming days, and I look forward to doing the Lights Out podcast with my co-host Ant in the coming days. Other than that, the Wrestling is Bullshit podcast will be back to analyze SummerSlam next week. And yeah, keep enjoying wrestling, guys. Be good and be happy. This has been the Wrestling is Bullshit podcast. I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Peace out.